A very warm welcome and good evening to all the viewers viewing this live streaming on the occasion of World Mental Health Day, Day 3 of 5. I'm Varsha Shah, a consultant psychologist, rehab administrator, and a co-founder of Resilience, Defining the Undefined. So on this World Mental Health Day, Resilience is wishing you a very happy and healthy mind.
Resilience is based in Krishnagar city of Nadia district, West Bengal, India. It's a therapeutic center in which we mainly work with children with special needs. Resilience provides a multidisciplinary approach to our Resilienites, involving occupational therapy, behavior therapy and behavior modification, speech therapy, as well as special education. Resilience also provide parents training session along with relaxation therapy and counseling to the super parents of our Resilienites, because Resilience believes that mental health of parents is as important as mental health of our kids, so that a satisfied and acceptant parent can make their kids future ready.
On behalf of Resilience, I would take this privilege to thank all the individuals who connected with us from many parts of the world and showed their keen interest in attending this webinar series, because of which we were pleasingly forced to live stream this conversation with our eminent speakers so that we could spread awareness on mental health of children with special needs as much as we can without any limitations or boundaries. Now, without much ado, I would like to welcome our speaker for the day, Dr. Manisha Dasgupta, who is going to speak upon impact of parenting styles on mental health of children with special needs. Welcome, ma'am. Dr. Manisha Dasgupta is currently an associate professor in the Department of Psychology, University of Calcutta. She has been teaching at the university for nearly 14 years. She is a recipient of National Merit Scholarship from Government of India at the undergraduate level and University Research Fellowship in the Department of Psychology, University of Calcutta for pursuing her doctoral research. She has jointly edited a book with Professor Nilanjana Sanyal and is one of the co-authors of the Indian adaptation of the Fairy Tale Test manual with her mentor. She has to her credit a number of publications at the national and international levels. Her research interests include personality, gerontology, clinical psychology, and projective psychology. Dr. Dasgupta is an honorary member of the Projective Fairy Tale Test Society, Athens, Greece. Apart from her membership in other national professional bodies, she is also an editorial consultant and reviewer of the number of national and international journals. Welcome, ma'am, and thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Without any delay, I would request you to kindly say something, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Varsha. Good evening, everybody. I feel it to be a great privilege on the part of myself to be invited by Resilience to grace the occasion and to be a speaker of today's webinar. Uh, Today is a very special day for mental health professionals all throughout the world. It is World Mental Health Day, especially in the present day, where life, where our daily living is challenged by a pandemic in the form of corona. I feel mental health has come at the backstage, and it is for all of us to be aware of mental health as uh, one of the most important aspects of health as such, for maintaining well-being, for maintaining quality of life for the family, for each and every members in a particular family. So With this, I would like to congratulate Resilience, Varsha, Devraj, and all other professionals out there who have been doing their relentless work, their dedicated work in this field of mental health, so as to promote the mental health of children, for individuals with special needs. For this, I would be coming to today's today's topic of discussion, that is the parenting style of for children with special needs. And for this, I have prepared a small presentation, a PowerPoint. But before that, before going to the presentation, I would like to say that parenting itself is one of the most challenging tasks. And it becomes even more challenging in a family, in a family when there is a child or number of children with special needs. Uh, so it is uh, the dire call of the day to have a focus on what are the nitty-gritties of parenting, the nuances of parenting, so that we can help children to feel a sense of emotional ambience. The emotional ambience becomes safer, becomes securer, and they have a space for developing on their own, so that their needs get fulfilled, their needs are catered to the maximum possible extent. For this, I would like to go ahead with my presentation, and then I would love to have some kind of interaction in the form of question answers. So, okay, just a second, let me share the screen. Okay. Today, we would be basically talking about on the impact of parenting styles on mental health of children with special needs. Is it audible now? Is it visible?
No, ma'am.
Yes?
You can't.
Not yet?
No, no, ma'am.
But I have just a second. How would I have share screen. Okay, I'll go about with the presentation within a while, but here parenting style refers to the kind of behavior or attitude of parents of significant others. Significant others, that is, people with whom the child feels related, the child feels emotionally connected, right? And for that, the parenting, good parenting definitely defines the emotional climate of the family, of the home, and it plays a very important role in children's social, emotional, cognitive, and moral development. So they all together account for parenting practices and overall behavior. Overall behavior. So as I was saying at the beginning of the discussion today, parenting itself is a challenging task. It is even more challenging for parenting children with special needs because it calls for more amount of time. It requires the investment of more energy. It requires more amount of resources for the parents, for the significant others in the family. So it is definitely challenging for the family, for the parents as such. Children with special needs are usually children having some developmental disabilities. They have some chronic disorders that can affect everyday life experience, like language, self-help, mobility. So, say children who come to resilience or other such institutes, they often have uh, some kind of disorders which tend to hinder their linguistic skills or self-help skills or mobility and other social adaptive functioning. So parenting children with special needs is definitely, I would say, it requires more time, effort, resources, and social support because it is, to an extent, stressful for the for the family members and for the definitely for the parents, right? So, according to the classical, say, uh, categorization, parenting can be divided into different kinds. Okay, so parenting may be divided in two different kinds. Like we have say authoritarian parenting, authoritative parenting, permissive parenting, and neglectful parenting. So authoritarian parenting is less supportive. It is more of controlling and less responsive in nature, whereby the parents tend to be more of dominating in nature for as far as the needs, as far as the needs of the child are concerned, right? Coming to the authoritative type, that relates to being supportive, being responsive to the child. That is, it involves a sense of reciprocity, being attached with the child optimally. This is healthy attachment. And it also involves some amount of demandingness, but this is to an optimal level. Permissive parenting is, on the other hand, it involves being very lenient, where the parents they lack demandingness, they have high responsiveness on the other hand. And lastly, we have neglectful or rejecting type of parenting style, which involves being less supportive and low on demandingness. Yes. So let me give an example of an authoritarian parent. Say a parent who tends to go for dictatorship, tends to have a kind of dictatorial uh, rule in the family as far as parent-child relationship is concerned. On the other hand, authoritative parenting involves a kind of mutual support for the child as well as the parent, and they are responsive, they are mutually reciprocating one another. Even if a child with special needs is not not able to be responsive to such uh, uh, a great manner, but still the parent is there to serve as a support figure. And coming to permissive one, we can have a parent who is least strict in that sense, and has less amount of demandingness, highly responsive, and is more of a sort of has a lackadaisical approach towards child towards the child or the children in the family. Whereas neglectful or rejecting kind of parenting may involve a parent who has adopted a defense mechanism, as in uh, he or she doesn't like the child because of some reason or the other. It can be because of some some inability of the child, or because of some other reason. Now, it is authoritative parenting, which is found to be one of the best kinds of parenting, where it is in fact associated with high levels of empathy. Such parents tend to understand children, the needs of their children, the needs of the child with special needs to a higher extent. And as a result, the child's emotional regulation, emotional expression gets fostered. Naturally, such a child will also have the ability to have encouraged social competence, because it prompts socialization of children. Say, for instance, if a parent engages in socialization of a child with special needs, a child with, say, an autistic child, or a child with the having the in the ASD, in the autism spectrum disorder, right? As a child who is there, who is having some anomalies because of himself or herself falling in the autism spectrum disorder, then there may be, if there is socialization of the parents towards the child, it would prompt social competence of the child also. And gradually, psychosocial maturity is bound to increase, right? It will also, such parenting helps in encouraging responsibility taking. It decreases the negative emotions. We should never underestimate children, even if they are children with special needs. They are sensitive beings. They are sensitive beings, and they can pick up the negative vibes in the parents if there are any such vibrations which the parents are emanating. So automatically, the sense of autonomy for children with special needs, get fostered as a result. So specific parenting practices which are associated with such kind of healthy parenting involves setting limits. Say there is a problem behavior. There's a problem behavior of the child. The parent may assertively set limits. He or she is often found to engage in healthy communication, not only verbal communication, but also non-verbal communication. It can be in the form of a touch, as ma'am yesterday was saying, Professor Nilanjana Sanyal yesterday was saying about this, a touch, a healthy touch, which can convey message to the children, that they are being loved, they are being accepted. A sense of autonomy can build in themselves, and there is also a kind of monitoring of the child, right? So it involves use of boundaries. It involves use of boundaries, healthy boundaries, where the child is allowed to explore in the environment and come back to the parent if needed to uh, to have a sense of comfort, to have a sense of social support, to have a sense of security. So on the other hand, we have we have the authoritarian parenting, that is the autocratic kind of parenting, who tends to have less empathy. It increases the space for negative emotions like anxiety, like aggression among children, right? And it also often prompts children to develop a sense of low self esteem. That is, a sense of feeling that I am not accepted, I am not worthy enough in the family. Maybe my sibling or my cousin is more accepted in the family. So there gets the seedlings for low self-esteem gets planted inside because of often authoritarian kind of parenting. Now, another very important concept in parenting, which helps in the healthy development of a child, is to do with parental consistency. Parental consistency means uh, that the availability of the parent. It's not only restricted to the physical availability of the parent, but it's more to do with the emotional availability, emotional consistency of the parent for the child. And this will help the child to develop a sense of acceptance, a sense of behavioral control over their own problems. And all of these factors will automatically contribute to the well being of the members of a family as a whole. So the entire quality of life of the members improves. On the last kind of parenting, that is neglectful parenting, is often associated with poorer self-esteem on the part of children, higher extent of aggression, and ambivalence, feelings of ambivalence. That is both hatred as well as uh, love towards parents. So neglect some kind of parents, they may adopt a defense that they do not like the child because he or she is cumbersome, he or she is so-called odd, not matching with the rest of the other children in the surroundings. But we as mental professionals need to understand the situation in a more sensitive manner, that uh, we are all of us, we have the right to live beautifully in this world. So why as neglectful parents do we refrain children of the adequate amount of love, nurturance, affection that a child is usually bestowed with? So, on the different dimensions of behavioral control of parents can be pressure. They can exhibit some amount of pressure. They can be to an extent intrusive regarding their children, and they can even be dominant. As I was saying, this might be a case. This might be true for the authoritative kind of parents, where they give more of pressure, they are more intrusive. The space, all of us tend to have a personal space. So it is us for it is for us to understand that we have to we have to be we have to respect the space of the other, even if the other is a child in the family, even if the child has some special needs. We really cannot have the right to intrude into the personal space, the private space of a child. Yes, as I said at the very beginning, all children are sensitive, be it so called typical children or the otherwise, children with special needs. Yesterday's there was much of an elaborate discussion on acceptance on the part of parents, unconditional acceptance. It also, acceptance naturally calls for care, comfort, nurturance, warmth, affection on the part of all the individual, on the part of the children, right? So that they feel that yes, uh, the parents are happy with them. The parents like them as they are, right? So this gives them the urge to come out of their problem, the motivation or the energy to come out of their problem. Now, acceptance can be exhibited through physically, like in the form of some healthy, like hugging, kissing child when appropriate. We can also go for verbal kind of acceptance, like praising the child, motivating the child, encouraging the child by providing some comments which are really helpful for uh, for uh, moving ahead, and maybe even praising the child when the child is not around, so that the parent also feels that yes, the child is improving, the child has got some kind of behaviors which are which may be which may cause some problem, but there are assets, there are some strength points of the child also. There are different dimensions of parenting. uh, Basically we have three different dimensions. One is the acceptance versus rejection. So this we have already covered. Acceptance, that is graceful acceptance of reality, whereas rejection is where a parent is not in a position to accept the child, instead is actually rejecting the child either verbally or non-verbally. Long time back, a case was referred to me where the the parents had come with their child having some special needs, but this child was adopted also, right? And they were at that time they were um, in a probational period uh, from the place from where they had adopted the child, and later on, like when the child came to their family, they gradually understood, they gradually realized that the child had certain developmental delays and some kind of other special needs. So they the query of the father was, what would be the quality, what might be the quality of life of the child and themselves in the near future. And whenever they understood that this was not the kind of dream that they had expected regarding the child, that they had woven in their mind, the next day in the session, the father asked, so can we go back to the institute and keep the child there? I said, had this been your biological child, would you have ever thought of such an option? Would you dumped the child with some disabilities or with some special needs? I think it's high time for all of us to look into our own selves, to see, to retrospect us, our needs, and to be a little more sensitive to other fellow human beings. And parents, they have the beautiful task of parenting. So I would say, let us respect the kind of task that has been, the kind of developmental task that has been endowed to them by life as such. Then there is another dimension of firm control versus lax control. A parent can be firm in his or her disciplining as far as a child is concerned, being assertive, being firm. Whereas parents, some kind of parents, some parents, they may also engage in permissive control. Okay, lax control. That is, they are very lenient, very, very lenient regarding the child. So that may also be a defense mechanism on the part of parents, probably to to conceal their guilt feelings regarding some issues related to parenting or some other issues that may come up. Psychological autonomy versus psychological control is the third important dimension. This involves psychological autonomy. It refers to a sense of mastery, a sense of mastery, a sense of autonomy, which is encouraged by the parent onto their children, whereas psychological control is where the parent controls the child. Okay, so there are different dimensions. So as I was saying, parenting a child with special needs is definitely stressful. It is some parents may adopt a kind of parenting which is known as compensatory parenting. This is also a healthy kind of parenting where they compensate a child's disability by providing the treatment that is specific to the nature of the disability. Say for a child, if for example, a child has got some speech anomalies, so the parents go to a speech therapist or maybe a vocational therapist, right? So these are different kinds of compensatory parenting strategies which may help along with the typical parenting behavior which may help in the healthy development of a child. I'll give an example here. A few years back, the British Council Library had celebrated the International Disability Month, right? And for that, they had shown the members of the library a few movies on disability. And of them, one of the movies I still remember, which was so very touching. This was based on a real character. This was based on a real character uh, from the from the daily practice, and there it depicted a young child with cerebral palsy uh, who had most of his muscles uh, were were affected, and the parents, they had kept a special trainer for the child uh, to help him develop proper, at least as much uh, as much as possible, right? So that the child's mental needs, the special needs, can be addressed. And there, the trainer was almost clueless for a few days at the beginning, where the trainer saw that most of the muscles were not functional for the child. But the trainer was hopeful. She did not lose hope. And suddenly, I still remember that image. Suddenly, uh, one day, the trainer had left the room of the child, and the child was alone in his wheelchair with his um, uh, toys, with one slate, with chalks and all. And earlier, before that, the trainer was trying to uh, help the child to be familiar with A, B, C, the alphabet. But suddenly, this now I remember the slate was the slate initially was there in the child's hand, but the child was not able to hold the slate for a long period of time, and suddenly the slate fell down to the floor. Right, the child looked at it, could not bent forward to pick up the slate because he was suffering from cerebral palsy, and he was helpless at that point of time. But the trainer was about to enter the room, and the child uh, was trying his level best to reach out to the slate, but he was not able to do it. And finally, with his left foot, he could uh, reach a piece of chalk, which he took in between his left bigger toe and the second toe, and he dragged himself to some extent to reach the slate with some kind of, with great amount of effort, I would say. Now, this was the ray of light to the special trainer. The special trainer felt that yes, this child with special needs has perhaps his muscles associated with the left foot comparatively more functional. She started working with the child, and she gradually found that her hypothesis, her assumption was true. And she started she started working with the child to develop his, uh, his muscular strength, his capacity of the muscles related to the associated with the left toes. And believe me, he gradually picked up. He was able to get himself trained, and with that, he was able to scribble some alphabets with the chalk held in between his left foot and his first toe on a slate, the alphabets of English language. Now, gradually, it even gives me goosebumps. Now even the child gradually was trained to excel, and he became, in those days, he became a typewriter. He equipped himself with typewriting skills, where he used to typewrite with his left foot, with the toe, with the bigger toe of the left foot, and he used to bang the lever to again keep the entire machine in, to go back to the next sentence with the left foot. And this was based on real life story, and this was how the child gradually grew up to a young man with excellence in typewriting skill. His vocational needs uh, were satiated by the help of a very sensitive special educator who had the parenting skills to be sensitive, to compensate for uh, the disability of the child in terms of providing a specific treatment tailored to his own needs. Parental straddling is yet another kind of dimension where parents attempt to treat their children with special needs as normal, as so-called normal, just as other kids, while acknowledging simultaneously their disabilities. So this means the parents do not discriminate amongst themselves, and this is also really very, very helpful for children. Expanded parenting is where the parents themselves broaden their parenting practices to accommodate their needs of their children. They themselves equip them, say, in say sign language, or in the language which would help them in a better way to reach out to their children. So there are certain other components associated with parenting, like disciplining, parental expectations, and nurturance. Parental expectations, we should be realistic. My urge to this podium is that we should be realistic in our expectations. Uh, we I think the word comparison doesn't go with these children, it doesn't go with anybody as such. If we can excel as ourselves as parents, we would be able to help children to flourish as far as their special needs are concerned, and they would feel emotionally secure. So parental sensitivity, responsiveness, and reciprocal interactions are associated with positive play behaviors, language gains, increases in daily living, as well as socialization skills of children. So parents, they serve as not only major role models for children, they serve as secure base, a pillar of security, pillars of social support. They are significant containers. They are significant containers where children feel held emotionally. The children feel emotionally contained by their significant others, and they feel accepted. So, uh, since parenting is really a tough job, one also needs to have some amount of quality time or me time for parents themselves to restore their own well-being, so that they become givers to their children. They become better givers. They become better givers so that children can be better choosers in the life context. So with these words, I would like to end my presentation. And I would like to I would like to have more of interaction. I would like to have more of interaction if there are any questions from the audience.
Yes, ma'am. We have questions, but before that, I must say that uh, I think my voice is echoing. Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Ma'am, before going to the questions, I must say that it was excellently explained and elaborative session on parenting, and I got all the memories of my master's day with you, and it was excellent, ma'am. Thank you so much. I guess all our parents have got uh, quite a lot of enriching concepts around means on parenting. So, ma'am, the first question we got in our comments is my daughter's age is 35 with mental retardation and autism. Mental age is around 12 to 14. Now she's now attracted towards opposite sex and asks about marriage. How to explain it to her?
Yes. Um, a child. She is a daughter. She's a daughter in her young adulthood, aged 35. So she has mental retardation and autism, but at the same time, she is now drawn towards opposite sex. So it is very natural. This is a very natural aspect, and I would say that this is a common issue that many parents may face. And if the question is how to explain it to her, yeah. So they can explain this. I think parents can explain the concept of marriage to the daughter by through stories, through some kind of elementary stories, because I don't know what is the severity of retardation. If she has mild mental retardation, I think she would be able to understand some concepts. She would
It's
have
mentioned
some.
that
Yeah.
it's mentioned that her mental age is 12 to 14.
Yeah, so I think that means around, yeah, moderate or but yeah. So it would not be that that much of a problem for the young adult to pick up the notion that this is a very normal feature for everybody of this age to feel attracted to the opposite sex, but how to uh, how to control those urges, okay, because she has other issues also as far as intellectual disability and autism are concerned. And if she opts for marriage, then it would, even if she might think that it might be she might look ahead for a good future, but it might be taxing for her special needs to accommodate in a new setting. So I would say that if the parents or the parents can take the help of some stories, or the professionals, they can take the help of professional help where professionals can attend to her special needs, uh, as in explaining that marriage is a no, is a very common practice of in our society, but it's not that every each and every member do marry, right? Because of different reasons. So why not nurture your skills, the skills that you have, and try to become independent as much as possible, so that you can lead an independent life to your limits as far as the boundaries concerned, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am. Definitely. Ma'am, we have another one question. Being a mother of a child of 4 years within autism spectrum and also a student of psychology, I can understand that being a good enough mother is not sufficient. Ma'am, please enlighten us if we can develop reverie within my son. He understands short instructions.
Um, yeah. So here, the child is 4 years old with autism in the autism spectrum disorder. Now, since the mother is already a student of psychology, I would feel that uh, she's in a privileged position to apply the principles, to have a better understanding of the problem. And it is difficult to be a good enough mother. It is often a utopian concept. But if we can accept the child properly, if we can respect the child for his or her, for his own talents, for his own strength points. He may be suffering from autism, but he at the same time he may have some kind of uh, knack for music, or he may have some uh, other strength points, like he may be very good in rhythm, right, in dance, or any kind. There has to be some kind of strength point. It's just like the special educator I was talking about in the movie. We have to be sensitive to find out the strength point of the child. Okay, I would have I would tell you, I would say, I would encourage you to just be patient, to observe your child uh, in an objective manner as much as possible, and to see what might be the strength points firstly, and the strength points that the child has, they need to be nurtured, they need to be encouraged by the parents. So if that is done, then I think that it would help to develop reverie with your son, and uh, with children of similar problems as a whole. So overall, I would say it would be really helpful if you just accept your child, try to engage in communication, healthy communication. Even if the child is not able to communicate with you verbally, there may be signs and languages. Just be sensitive, just be a good listener, good listener, good observer. You would be able to pick up.
Ma'am, we have one more question. If the elder child's anger or aggressive behavior scares the younger one, he hides himself everything in a secure place to deal with it. How, as a mother, can I explain it to the younger as to how to behave in such a situation, and at the same time convey it to the elder that his behavior needs to be changed?
Yeah. A very good question. Now, I
Ma'am,
could
just
not
for background, ma'am, for a background, I should add on with this. These two brothers, both is having autism.
Okay.
The elder one is 17 and the younger one is around, yes, and the younger one is 10.
Okay. Since both the siblings are siblings with special needs, the children are similar, but similar in some respects, but there may be some differences also. The differences, the individual differences are bound to be present, right? The elder child may be aggressive and is scaring the younger one, right? Younger one. So, as a mother, as a good parent, if the message is conveyed to both the offsprings that this is a behavior which is not desirable, this will hurt both of you. This will hurt both of you, and instead of fighting, instead of being aggressive, I think if both of them get some turns to play, say the first one gets some time, say if the parent can limit the boundary, can define the boundary of the playtime with the toy or with the brother, right? So this is your time. So if some amount of me time can be provided to the children themselves, quality time is given to the elder child as well as the younger child separately, then the children will not have more such kind of problem behaviors with one another, firstly. And secondly, if the parent uh, can convey the message that this will actually uh, disturb the harmony of the family. It will make both of you feel bad. It will hurt both of you. It is it's scaring your younger brother, and the elder one is also not feeling good. So why to encourage such behavior? Instead, uh, uh, encourage some other behaviors where both the children are sort of playing with their parents together, so that both the children, the autistic children, both the children, they feel the urge, they feel the need to respect the other sibling, right? So this will gradually, the problem behavior will gradually decrease. Any other question?
Ma'am, adding on to this, actually, the issues that is arising in this case is the elder one, he knows everything. He knows that he is doing something wrong. He knows that whatever he is doing is not right and what should be done. He is quite intelligent. But when we ask him what are the reasons you are doing this, he tells us that I don't want to be I don't want to lose my mom. If I become independent, I will be my mom will not take care of me completely the way she does at present. That is the reason I don't want to get out of my independence.
So he is emotionally intelligent.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
would probably there might be he might be high functioning autistic. I don't know about the assessment, but if he is, as far as your description is concerned, I feel he has some kind of high functioning qualities in him. And if this is so, I think his emotional needs need to be more catered first. He has to be explained that your mother, you will not lose your mother if you become independent. Your mother will be there with you always. Yes, in a different form. It's not that if you regress and if you hit your younger brother, if you scare your younger brother, you are getting the negative kind of attention from your mother, from your parent. This is not done. So if you can understand it very well, so why don't you come forward to rectify yourself? He would understand, I believe.
Yes, ma'am. Ma'am, yeah, before ending, we have two more questions.
Yeah.
The first one is, ma'am, how the personality pattern of parents affects their parenting styles.
How the personality, very good. Personality pattern of parents, it affects their own parenting style, because many a times we find that we have a concept of internal working model. Internal working model is the impression that an individual has regarding the kind of parenting that he or she has with his or her own significant others. So many times we as parents, we unknowingly project our unconscious needs, unconscious conflicts at times onto our own offsprings unknowingly, because we are influenced by the kind of parenting that we ourselves have experienced as children during our childhood. So this is a kind of vicious cycle. So many a times I would say, if a child grows up to have secure attachment with his or her own parents, then he or she is likely to have a sense of security, which will uh, which will um, which will which will leak outside, even in the kind of parenting that the parent has for his or her child. And similarly, if there is a parent with some early exposures of faulty parenting, or some kinds of some kind of parenting where the needs or the conflicts, they were not really resolved. Yeah, so that may in turn result in either to have a compensatory kind of parenting, right? Or a kind of defensive parenting, whereby they themselves try to be the kind of parents that they experience as far as their mothers or fathers are concerned. So it's just like that. Yeah. So the internal working model plays a very important role in the parenting of young children.
Yes, ma'am. And I have one more question, very important in nowadays. How working parents can take out time for these children with special needs?
Working parents have plenty of engagements. They have plenty of engagements in the office. Now, during the past few months, the home has become the office of most parents. Yeah. So the new kind of home office ambience with the children out there, and if the working parents are parents of uh, children with special needs, that's even more daunting. So my suggestion would be, have some time for your child. Have some me time. I would say we time. We time for the family, where the parents can can necessarily refrain themselves from gadgets of any kind, be it computers, be it laptops, mobiles, any kind of iPads, anything. So they need to refrain themselves from gadgets and instead they need to detox themselves in a homely manner, in an informal manner with their children, where it can be in the dining table when they are having their meal. It can be in the drawing room when they just gossip for some topic or the other. It can be taking interest in the child's craft or child's exercises or child's paintings, anything, music, any performance that the child is engaged in. So, giving some time for the members themselves to be, to have a feel of family without any intrusion, without any kind of interference, gadget interference, and that would help the parent to have quality time with the child. And I think quality time is much more important than quantity time. Yeah, yeah. Even if there's a homemaker with ample amount of time with the kid, and there is a working parent with a specially, say, with a disabled child, with a child having special needs, where the mother or the father is there to look after the child for some moments, for some periods of time, repeatedly on a regular basis, the child will be looking forward to that time at for all throughout the day. It can be at the before the time, the time before going to bed. Say a kind of story time, storybook time where the parent reads out stories, or it can be any kind, some kind of playing, carom, or any kind of engagement with the child that will automatically improve the quality of parenting.
Thank you, ma'am. That was excellently explained. I hope our viewers and parents will be benefited from that. So, though we don't have any more questions, so we can end up today. Uh, all the viewers are requested to kindly tune in tomorrow at 4. We have Dr. Sharbari Sen on impact of socioeconomy on mental health of children with special needs. Have a good day and a very happy World Mental Health Day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.